Hello friends, Andy here for WhatCulture.com, and as the office's token basketball fan, I've been asked to invade your lovely gaming channel for this review of NBA 2K19, so without further ado, let's get into it. So as is always the case with these annual sports franchises, if you're already familiar with the NBA 2K franchise, you've probably got a strong idea of what to expect from this year's incarnation, and really, your expectations wouldn't be wrong. Slick, immaculate presentation, a boatload of different game modes, the best commentary in any sports franchise, and of course, a deep, rewarding, and complex representation of the sport of basketball. These are the things that the NBA 2K franchise is known for, and you'll be glad to know that 2K19 doesn't veer far from the formula. So let's just get the obvious stuff out of the way, shall we? This thing looks and sounds fantastic, with this year's array of minor audio and graphical tweaks adding an extra layer of gloss and sheen. There are a handful of minor hiccups and glitches because of course there are, it's 2K, but for the most part, this game's an absolute beauty. The developers have once again absolutely nailed the feeling of capturing a live basketball broadcast, with everything from the squeak of shoes on the hardwood floor to the mid-game interviews adding to the overall presentation. I mean, it does get a little bit weird when Kyrie Irving shows up wearing a foil hat blabbering on about the flat earth, but it's these little touches that set NBA 2K apart from the competition as a sports franchise. The soundtrack is as big a deal as ever, and with Travis Scott curating this year, you get the usual blend of modern hip-hop sounds, in with a few out-of-genre picks like Fall Out Boy of all people, 3 Days Grace, and Black Veiled Brides. In terms of gameplay, well, the core framework is essentially the same as ever. It's still plenty accessible, but there are enough intricacies and small details for you to master, which makes it a really rewarding experience as always. There are a few notable changes, particularly on offense. It's no longer enough to just get a strong, fast player on the ball and charge towards the basket anymore. Slashing is still effective, but only in the hands of the right player, and now there's a far greater emphasis on playmaking. You're really going to have to work for your points, and that brings a whole new strategic approach. This is a good thing. It feels like more of a methodical game of basketball, and when you have the ball in the hands of a Chris Paul, it really feels like you're out there controlling the floor rather than just slashing or chucking shots aimlessly. This new strategic approach really makes 2K19 a more rewarding experience. Now, I'm well into the double figures, but I feel like I'm still learning most of the game's core mechanics, and that's a good thing. I'm going to be at this thing for hours, and you will be too. The offensive tweaks aren't perfect. Yes, slashing has been nerfed and it did feel a bit overpowered last year, but this year, the post game is just a little bit too strong, and if you're good enough, you can essentially turn JaVale McGee into Hakeem Olajuwon. Okay, maybe not, that's an extreme example, but it's definitely overpowered, and it's definitely something they'll want to scale back in a coming patch. But of course, one of the biggest talking points coming into this year's game was the new Takeover System, and while it isn't perfect, it's a very welcome addition to the game and it works very, very well as a whole. How it works is that each individual player has a bar, and as those players make positive contributions to the team's overall play, that bar starts to fill up, and when it gets to the end, you basically turn into a mad basketballing Thanos. What I mean there is that when you reach the end, you unlock all kinds of mad attribute boosts, and there are a number of different archetypes based on the stats and skills of the player in question. So if Rudy Gobert takes over, he's going to be rejecting fools and cleaning up the glass like nobody's business, and if James Harden gets to the end, well, those ISOs are going to be insane. And of course, certain elite players can work several archetypes at a time, so if LeBron James or Steph Curry get cooking, they're going to be unstoppable like Michael Jordan in Space Jam. It's a neat new feature players have been able to heat up for several years now, so it's not quite the grand innovation that 2K claim it to be, but it's a sweet little gimmick and it works really well. So with the core mechanics out of the way, let's move on to the content, and as always, NBA 2K19 is absolutely stuffed to the gills with things to do. There are frankly way too many game modes to include here, so we're going to stick to the most positive, my career, and the most negative, my team. Effectively taking the form of a basketball RPG, My Career is a blast as always, and this year's edition is entitled The Way Back. In 2K19, your player is called AI, and after missing the cut in the NBA draft, he's forced to relocate to China, play in their league, and get himself back on the radar of American scouts, hopefully to get back into the NBA. Now, saying more than that would veer into spoiler territory, but you can probably guess how it ends up. Regardless, the whole thing feels a lot less cheesy than previous incarnations, and frankly, after last year and the year before that, that's very welcome. There's nothing anywhere near as cringy as Frequency Vibrations, who the hell came up with that name, and his gang of goobers. The neighbourhood has been expanded, and your man Anthony Mackie from the Avengers even shows up. What's not to love about that? But on the flip side, my team is, well, it's just kinda lame. The concept is there. It's essentially still the same as EA Sports Ultimate Team modes in that you gamble your virtual currency away on a number of random card packs in hope that you'll get a bunch of good little assets, build a wild NBA dream team, and take on the world. But as usual, if you want to get the most out of this gameplay mode, then you've got two options. Number one is that you grind your way through earning VC through a really unrewarding grindy system, or number two, bloody microtransactions. 2K19, for all its positive points, is still plagued by greedy pay-to-progress systems like this, and while it is a problem in my career as well, it's not quite as invasive as it is in my team. Now, in fairness, 2K have loosened up a little bit, particularly in my career, where players now earn a significantly larger amount of VC per game, which in turn makes your progression a whole lot quicker, but it's still greedy and honestly just kind of gross. Now, the microtransaction debate has been done to death, and I'm not going to dive into it too deeply here, but it's just a shame that at certain times in the game, it leaves NBA 2K19 feeling like nothing more than a cheap, nasty, horribly put together mobile game. That is the biggest downer on 2K19. Yes, there are some glitches, but those can be fixed with patches, and maybe some of the new tweaks to the overall gameplay aren't to everyone's tastes. But microtransactions, by God, they're going nowhere, but they're nothing more than a cash grab. And yeah, I guess some people might cite 2K's lack of year-to-year innovations as a major downer as well, but that's not really what this franchise is all about. The game's foundation is strong as hell, the community is absolutely massive, and if they make major changes every single year, aside from the expense and the effort that would take, they risk alienating massive swathes of their fan base in one go. Now, you guys might disagree, and you're more than entitled to, but I think this approach with just minor tweaks, a few new features here and there, and of course updated rosters, is probably the right way to go. That being said, this does feel like an advancement on 2K18, with the adjusted gameplay mechanics, new story, and takeover feature all delivering, ensuring 2K's status as the best basketball sim around, and even things we haven't had a chance to talk about, like the adjusted shot meter, all deliver. It isn't perfect for all the reasons I've just described, but 2K19, you'll be relieved to know, is strong enough to earn a big fat 4-star rating. But anyway guys, that's all from me. It's been a pleasure making this guest appearance on the gaming channel, so be sure to head down to the comment section below and let us know how you feel about NBA 2K19 as a whole. And once you've done that, check out some of the cool things we're currently doing over on Twitch. Point your browser to twitch.tv/WhatCulture. The great men and women of WhatCulture Gaming are broadcasting several times a week, so check it out. I've been Andy once again, and I'll see you later.